Redditors whose job requires them to go into other people's homes for a living, what's the most bizarre thing you've seen or found? Had a job doing estimates for insulation and other attic work. One time I showed up at a house who needed insulation quote, and as soon as they opened the door I started gagging from a smell that was burning my eyes and nose. First thought was like, that smells like ammonia. I fought through it and asked the owner where the attic access was, and he opened up the garage, and I shit you not, there was cat and dog feces everywhere with water stains all over the concrete that was most definitely urine soaked through permanently. The smell of ammonia was so overwhelming I thought I was gonna pass out from oxygen deprivation. The feces was everywhere and piled on top of other shit. You couldn't take one step in the garage without stepping on it. Still standing outside the garage door, I saw the access had no ladders, so told the guy I would be right back with my ladder. I got in my car and took a few minutes to catch my breath, then called my boss as I noped out of there. My boss called animal control but have no idea what happened after that. My dad works painting houses. The local rental agency hired him to reno a suite that had just been evicted, and paid him extra to clean it as well. There was an awful smell that he couldn't figure out the source of, until he finally started cleaning the kitchen day 2. The evicted tenant had taken a shit in the dishwasher before they left, and run a quick cycle, it was coating the whole interior. I'm a plumber, went down to service the boiler in the basement, and the homeowner walked me through their red room. One wall had all the whips and spanking utensils, another had all the chains, cuffs, ball gags. There was a glass cabinet that one would expect to find fine china or expensive trinkets. Nope, dildos and vibrators, all shapes, sizes, and colors. Not one but 2 sex swings hanging from the ceiling, a giant sawhorse with rings mounted to it, a medieval-looking rack, and a small cage. I mean, to each their own and all, but at least give a fella a heads up before you walk him through the set of 50 Shades of Grey. Installed sod at this lady's newly built home. She was in her mid-60s maybe. Anyway, she didn't know where the valve to the exterior tap was in the basement and asked if I could go down and turn it on for her. No problem. I go down the stairs to the unfinished basement and it's pitch dark. I find a light switch and then suddenly there is a 400-pound man naked and asleep on a mattress 3 feet away from me. She never mentioned this before I went downstairs. Apartment is mostly on the 2nd floor, with the second entrance, den, and washroom on the 1st floor, rest of the floor is another apartment. Buddy decides he doesn't need the downstairs area, so he just uses it as a compost pit, literally just throws his organic trash down the stairs. Pile is like 5 feet tall, 8 feet across. Edit, not my buddy, I just call everyone buddy. I'm a plumber. Edit 2, preemptive, I'm not your buddy, guy. Realtor here. I was showing a house that was supposed to be empty. I knocked and rang the bell to make sure. Once inside I walked into a bedroom and found the current tenant butt-ass naked, absolutely slamming on an electronic drum kit in what was a mostly soundproof room. He never noticed I was there, but I'll never forget him. I would frequently go into homes on all conditions with buyers and sellers. There was a really cool historic house listed in a good neighborhood. The guy was a hoarder and he had torn off all the plaster and filled the walls with books. I've seen people living in the most deplorable conditions, and dealt with so many odd people. Edit, the books were in every room of the house. Floor to ceiling. Former babysitter, one house, a toilet in the hallway. Not a bathroom, just a toilet literally in the middle of a carpeted hallway, middle of the hallway but against a wall, that totally worked. It was parallel to the wall, not perpendicular, there was zero cover around it and it faced the stairway. So if you used it, and somebody came up the stairs, you were going to be making eye contact. I never understood it. It looked like someone just set a toilet down for a minute. There was a full bathroom 6 away connected to the hallway. Edit, this was a small 2-story house with a family of 4. The hallway was narrow, and if the toilet was perpendicular to the wall, I'm not sure you could have walked down the hallway without bashing your shins on it, unless you turned sideways. It did work, it was clean, but probably wasn't used by the family since it was covered in child locks after the toddler discovered flushing things. I babysit for a family that has a bust of the Quaker Oats guy. Paramedic. Oh boy. Hoarder houses are the worst. Rich and big houses in a swanky area that were barren inside. Like a mattress on the floor, all the money went to mortgage. Trailers that have cats and poop everywhere. Homes that look fine on the outside but are basically stripped inside because people don't keep it up. I used to work in frontline child protection. I've seen hoarder homes that were unsafe to enter. One place, the laundry was the dog's bathroom and there was months-old dog shit everywhere, meth labs, and all sorts of shit. One of the worst things I saw was a shit-smeared room with a regular baby crib that the parents had put lid on it, turning it into a cage. The child was 5. I used to do home health and just go in and help people with everyday things they couldn't do because of their condition. Had this really sweet older lady with a bad case of psoriasis. Her floors had a layer of dead skin covering nearly every square inch of the apartment. It was even in her dog's water bowl. Did my best to keep it clean, and visited twice a week. Each time it was just as bad. I can still smell it if I think about it. Bed bugs. Now some people are gonna come here and comment that bed bugs are very elusive and leave only subtle signs. They're right, except when the infestation is so thorough that the little fuckers are crawling en masse during daylight, and the walls, carpets and furniture are blackened by their feces. Nope, right the fuck out of there. I'm a painter, and in the process of covering the clothes in a wardrobe with plastic and masking up, I uncovered a box, that was only covered by the clothes hanging over it, that had possibly the biggest strap-on kit I've ever seen, easily a 10+ inch strap-on. I should mention I mainly do repaints of retirement homes. Them old folks wild. 2 stuffed dead giraffes. Like, taxidermy. Pet sitter here. If you don't find a secure place to put your sex toys, your dogs may bring them to guest in your home. We had to do inventory on a woman's sex toys after her house caught on fire. She had over $1,000 worth of dildos and vibrators that filled an entire contractor's trash bag. We accidentally kicked the bag one day and we had to dig through all of them to turn one of them off. Edit, we don't actually know the cost of the toys, but there were 37 total toys. I'm a social worker. My coworker knocked on a client's door and he answered totally naked. He was a depressed alcoholic. When I had to work with him a year later, the first thing I did was ask him to always be clothed when we met. He kept his promise. My other coworker had a client whose pet pig came to the door the first time she visited. What's most common is dirt and tremendous clutter. Pro tip: whenever possible, always sit on a hard chair and not the couch. Not really bizarre, but was tasked with removing a rattlesnake from an elderly lady's home. What was found was her sex toy lodged between furniture and the wall while on / vibrating. Poor thing thought it was a snake's rattle, lol. Turned it off, with gloves, and told her the snake had been removed. Makes me laugh, she was a sweet lady. I'm a midwife, and in a postpartum visit at home, the couple had 2 big pigs as pets. They were living with them in the house and even had their own room. Super chill pigs. A jar full of bedbugs. They wanted to show us that they indeed had bedbugs. You could see the damn things in the daylight all over the furniture. We knew. Edit, thanks for the silver and awards, kind folks, for a comment that even gave me the heebie-jeebies while writing it. In the 90s, I had a summer job at a small electronic repair shop. I had to deliver and reconnect an elderly woman's 32 television. This was the tube kind. It was huge and heavy. Get to her trailer and she answers the door, woman in her 70s wearing a thin cotton shirt as a dress that barely reached her mid-thigh, was essentially transparent, no underwear, everything on full display. Kept my eyes averted as I hauled the TV in and reconnected it to the cable box and VCR. When I was done, she took me to her bedroom. All four walls were covered in crosses and crucifixes of all shapes and sizes. She pointed out gold-plated ones, a crucifix made from olive wood from Israel, another of lapis lazuli, etc. She spent a good half hour telling me the story of each one. Used to live in South Florida and worked an apartment complex. One day we cleaned out this apartment after tenants moved out. Wasn't too bad as it was mostly clean, but the shocking part was finding a severed goat's head in the fridge, on a platter, not just stuffed in there, it was skinned and everything. Startled the fuck out of me and wasn't sure what to do. Supervisor said it was no big deal and was common among the Haitian population where they use the whole head for a stew. So much porn, so many dicks, several urns of cremated remains. When you do estate auctions, you often find out that dad had a vast porn collection or that grandma collected every phallus decoration she could lay her hands on. The urns always make me sad. Like, who in the hell leaves Uncle Bob up on the mantle and thinks, meh, the auctioneers can sell him? Spoiler, no, we can't. I used to be a furniture mover. This one lady we moved had a bulletin board filled with Polaroids of her holding guys' dicks. Dozens of them, all different shapes and colors, just resting in her hand. A/C call. Worked at this complex for a year and I've never seen this guy in my life. Just imagine Dale Gribble but shirtless and in short shorts. The man had a tri-fold mirror set up with a camera and had a stack of VHS pornos next to his 20-inch tube TV. My co-workers laughed their asses off when I told them what I walked into. They didn't warn me, man. Told me he keeps a sex doll in the bedroom. Honestly, been doing this shit 5 years. Seen too much shit. Hoarders. Creeps. It seems like a lot of people aren't right. Back in my teenage babysitting days, I regularly watched 3 kids whose parents kept one of those enormous packages of hot dogs out on the kitchen counter. Everyone in that household would just wander by and grab a room temperature hot dog as a snack whenever they felt like. I babysat for them 2 to 3 times per week for over a year and never not saw those hot dogs. I wonder about them all the time. EDA, thank you for the awards, you beautiful strangers. And for the tales of your weird, wonderful childhood snacks. My favorite was mushing Chef Boyardee raviolis onto toast. Not my story, but my brother was a roofing estimator and went into many homes to track down leaks. So many nude paintings / pictures of the wife. Usually he was discussing the leak with her. A friend of mine is a locksmith. He went to go open a safe in this gorgeous woman's house because she had forgotten the combination. The safe was full of kinky S&M gear, dildos of every shape and size and many porn DVDs. Turns out she was a well-known porn actress and starred in most of the pornos in the safe. There is this one house I will never forget. It was filled with penises. There were pictures on the wall of penises. Penis statues, carvings, paintings, flags, tapestries, lamps, table legs, drawings, etc. were all of penises. The armrests on the chairs and couches were shaped like penises. So if you put your arm on them, you would be grabbing the head. Even the couches and chairs were upholstered in penis fabrics. The 2 dudes that lived there were both artists and they made all of it. It was the weirdest fucking thing I think I have ever seen. I'm a paramedic in a regional area in Australia. We used to go to a very small town about 30 minutes away to see the same patient every other week. They were never particularly sick, just didn't care for themselves well. She was an older lady, probably in her late 60s, and she lived with her adult son. The house was horrible old, falling down, full of garbage. A classic hoarder house. They both lived in the same room, what should have been the lung-e room. Presumably they shared a bed, as there was only one and no lounge or recliner, just dining chairs. None of this was so bad that I thought about it very often, though. What really got me thinking was the large, visibly used dildo which was usually on the bed sheets, sometimes on the computer desk. I had nightmares about that dildo. A graphic cross-stitch of a naked man holding his ankles above his head so his, detailed dick and balls stuck straight out. I was house-sitting and already in bed when I looked over and saw strange embroidered porn. I clean houses. One guy has his snap-on toolbox in his closet, and instead of naked women on the wall like I'm used to, stepdad is a mechanic, he has posters of a young Queen Elizabeth too. No disturbing thing, but I do have to say that I feel much better about the condition my home is kept in. I do real estate photography, so I see people's homes after prepping their house for some time, weeks. These homes are usually always looking their best. Let me tell you, some people's best is worse than your worst. A fuck stick. Medical worker here. We visited a very large lady who, after the call was well underway, was telling her husband to gather her things to take to the hospital and mentioned something like it's by the fuck stick. When we looked confused, she indicated a large stick sort of like a broom handle that was leaning against a nearby wall. She then proceeded to tell us that it's the stick she uses to lift up and hold back her fat rolls so her husband can get at her vajayjay when they have sex. I was doing a remodel of some old crappy condemned apartments. People were still living in it even though they were supposed to get out. Every time we went into a new apartment, the people that were living in them would just up and leave and never come back. Went in one dude's apartment and found a joint rolled up in a $1 bill. Could have bought a whole pack of rolling papers with that dollar. And the dude didn't have any furniture or anything. The only other thing we found in there was a framed copy of his own birth certificate hanging on the wall. Who hangs up their own birth certificate? Was covering another department by doing a home care call. It wasn't the sketch neighborhood that bugged me too much. It wasn't the run-down house exterior that made me judgy. The fact that the stairwell was almost separated from the wall was a nope for me. So was the shirtless husband who tried to corner me as I beat a retreat, a cigarette dangling from his lip. The final straw that had me call for a welfare check on the wife was the fact that on the way out I tripped over a mostly mummified dog. A meth lab, inflatable doll a cigarette burn hole in it, the guy said after sex he had a cigarette and dropped it on the doll, burning a hole into it. True story, ropes tied to a bed and a large Band-Aid tin collection. Went into a structure fire once. Back bedroom was basically converted into a dungeon. Dildos, strap-on, a cross, a cage, anal plugs and drawings of dicks everywhere. I mean everywhere. I did professional furniture assembly and I was assigned a work order for a woman whom I discovered was a professional dominatrix. She needed a sex table and a mechanical dildo machine assembled in her red room. Her red room was filled with every sex toy imaginable, and some you can't imagine. Not me, but someone I did contracting work with once ripped up a carpet and found a pentagram painted underneath. The owners were super Christians and accused the guy who found it, saying that he was trying to let the devil in. I used to work in a social worker type setting and would do quarterly required visits to my clients' homes. All of them were very low income and had an array of complex physical, and generally mental, health issues. I had one client who never let me in her home, which she was allowed to do. But she showed me one close-up picture, there was mold growing all over the inside of the home. I mean everywhere. Her alarm clock was covered in mold as well as the surrounding nightstand. Walls. Floors. Furniture. Fridge. Everywhere.